On the program today, preparedness. You know, economic and political advisors keep telling us that the need for a secure economic landscape for a country is adequately needing to be prepared in order to meet all of the challenges before it. Coming up, we're going to hear how one area county is readying future workers through its training consortium. And then in the second half of the program, if there were a natural disaster, would you know what to do? What's in your disaster preparedness kit? We're going to talk about that next on Kentucky Outlook. The program is Kentucky Outlook. I'm your host, Barbara Deeb. We're talking today about preparedness. You know, you can be prepared in a number of environments in a number of ways, but we're going to start out talking about the economy and how we can be better prepared for a new economy. How are our workers trained and what can we expect in a new generation? We're going to welcome to the program two individuals who are doing just that in Simpson County. Welcome with me, if you will, Manon Pardue. And Manon, you've been instrumental in something called the Simpson County Training Consortium. You're going to tell us more about that. In addition, we are joined by the Executive Director of the Franklin-Simpson Chamber of Commerce, Steve Thurmond. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
First of all, we've talked a lot on this program in particular about the changing face of jobs. You know, what we knew that used to exist in manufacturing, in small businesses, in large businesses, corporations, doesn't exist anymore. It's a new face, it's a new generation. So what kind of jobs are we looking at when we realistically look at this region, and in particular Simpson County?
Well, and I think, Barb, some of the things that we looked for when we began to think about this concept of a training consortium is how could we be out in front? What would be the things that would be needed not only in today's world for businesses, and we're talking manufacturing primarily right now, but what would be needed in 5 years and 10 years in the future, because we all know, as you said, that skill sets are changing so quickly that it's really difficult to keep up with what the skill sets are.
To keep the head above water. So this training consortium was not just one person, and it wasn't just like this, we're going to turn it over. This was many years in the making and lots of people working together. So we start with Western Kentucky University had a role in helping the Franklin-Simpson Chamber of Commerce.
That's absolutely correct. I came to the Chamber in 2007, and probably in the second week of my tenure at the Chamber, I met Manon Pardue. And we started talking about, because what we were hearing, Barb, is not only do we need to prepare young people, but we need to retrain. Because everything that my mom and dad did, and even I did as a younger person, is gone. There are robotics now. There are so many things that are so different in the manufacturing world. So we had to train young people, but we also had to retrain older people, some that were still in their job. Sometimes when you think of retraining, you think of someone who has lost their job and now has to be trained for another job. Well, retraining goes on within the industry itself. And we were hearing from industry, it costs so much for us to retrain. We need to do something to try to save money on our retraining. Fortunately, we were close to WKU, and we could send people to WKU, but when you're in Simpson County, your employee loses an hour of downtime just in the travel. And we thought that if we could bring training back to Simpson County, that we could save that time. Plus, with a consortium, there are certain savings, the economy of scale actually helps in the training. So all of that brought us to the table to talk not only to WKU, but also to then Bowling Green Technical College, now Southcentral Kentucky Community and Technical College. And all of the players are at the table now working in this training consortium.
So is there a physical space that is this training consortium facility in Simpson County?
Well, and that's a good question, Barb. One of the things we prided ourselves on when we put this together, and Steve and I were just a couple of the partners, we certainly were not all the ones, is how could we customize this program for the needs of Simpson County? And so when we talk about what are the needs that manufacturers have, first of all, they want training that's user-friendly, that's quality training, and also that it's certainly affordable. And so one of the things we said is, where can we hold classes how can we get funds to help support these? And that's when Sky CTC, Southcentral Community and Technical College,
That's a mouthful.
stepped up and said, well, we have a facility. We can, put together some training rooms out there. And so they have been very instrumental in coming together, providing all kinds of space for not only technical training, but also soft skills, employability skills, which are important. And when we talk about the funding, we talked about how can we help offset some of the training costs, because the concept of a training consortium is several companies coming together, sending their employees to classes, and then sharing cost associated with that with
But
each other.
these skills or these skill sets that they're retraining on or learning have to be generic enough to suit maybe 3 different manufacturers.
That's correct.
Then they'd be more willing to put their funds
Right.
together to help support the training. That's a challenge.
And besides the saving of just the money, if one organization has 3 people who needs training and another organization has 5, it's very expensive to train 3 people. Especially, take robotics as an example. Very expensive to train 3 people in robotics. But if you have 8 or 10 from 2 or 3 different companies, that shaves the training or the expense of the training, and it brings those companies together to work on other items and other issues in the manufacturing world in Simpson County.
So this is, you're hearing this and you're thinking, okay, so jobs, right? This is a good thing. Let's look at the bigger picture. Beyond jobs, what does this mean for a region and for the state, for the country?
And I think for the area of Simpson County, it really adds another dimension to, let's say, existing businesses, because just recently in Simpson County, we've had several groundbreakings for companies who have expanded, and those companies are a part of the training consortium. So they were able to see that we have a way to meet training needs, so we're going to expand our lines and everything. Also, Denny Griffin, who of course you know is the Economic Development Director for Simpson County, can utilize the Simpson County Training Consortium as a marketing tool when he meets with potentially new businesses to say, don't worry, we have a lot of the skill sets, but if you need to come here and you need to train your people to enhance their skill sets, we have an infrastructure to do that. And also with the Training Consortium, we were able to apply for a Bluegrass State Skills Grant through the Kentucky Economic Development Cabinet, and that's a reimbursement of about 50% of training cost.
Wow.
So not only do the companies share the cost, but the grant helps offset some of the other training costs as well. So it's a win-win.
You called it an add-on, as you mentioned. So when the economic development officer is out there trying to recruit new businesses, an add-on, you called it a new tool in the toolbox of the existing industry. What do you anticipate will be the future of this consortium?
One of the things that we've already seen, Denny, our chamber and our industrial authority are a little different than the chamber in Warren County. We have 2 separate organizations that work hand in hand instead of all working through the same organization. I like to think of us as a support to the economic development or the industrial authority. And we have already seen in speaking with potential industries to come to our community, they are very interested in the fact that they can pool their employees with other companies' employees to get this training. They are interested in saving that money, and as I said, it's an economy of scale when you can have more people doing it, plus you get the grants, and that training comes, the expense of that training comes way down. Another thing that we're doing that is within the consortium to a degree is we are providing education to high school students who are going to Southcentral Kentucky Community and Technical College earning dual credit. 5 organizations in our community put up $10,000 apiece to provide scholarship money so that any student graduating from Franklin-Simpson High School who is going to Southcentral Kentucky Community and Technical College can take courses at no cost to them. Now,
And go ahead and get the credit hours.
and go get dual credit hours. They're
Nice.
getting the hours or the credits to graduate from high school, and they're getting hours, college hours, that are transferable to WKU or other schools throughout the Commonwealth. When we start talking about tools in the toolbox, the consortium and the on-track program working hand in hand are beginning to really make a difference in our recruiting area.
Where are the jobs of the future? I heard you say that word, robotics. And, you know, are we going to get to that place where these jobs are so skilled and so technical that we will necessitate specific training? What do you anticipate?
One of the things that I have pushed for so long, everyone is not cut out to go to college, to a 4-year college. While we may go to robotics and some of the manufacturing may be really, really high scale, what we're beginning to see, the average age of an electrician in Simpson County is 53 years old. Try to get an electrician or a plumber now. So when we talk about manufacturing, we are talking about raising the bar on the kinds of jobs that are going to be there. But there will always be the trades, and we have young people who want to go to those trade school type classes, and there has not been a mechanism for them to do that, and now there is more of a mechanism for that. So it's about preparing people for the future to get their first job, but also to advance in the jobs that they have. Manufacturing is coming back. I mean, we see that in Simpson County. I'm sure in the surrounding counties we're seeing that. Major corporations are talking about they're bringing jobs back to America, manufacturing jobs back to America. So all of these things are going to tie together. I really think, of course I'm an optimist, but I really think the future is good for manufacturing. We've seen our unemployment rate drop to 6.4% in Simpson County. And I think that the consortium, the training that people are receiving, the on-track program where we're training young people to go out into the workforce has a great impact on that unemployment rate.
Well, with you at the helm, I can see why. What a salesman. So Manon, your involvement in this, you've worked very hard to see it come to fruition. What are you hoping for?
Well, I think one of the things that Steve's already outlined is much of the success of what is happening is that we hoped it would be a tool in the toolbox that would also be able to provide manufacturing and even other businesses as the consortium grows. It was primarily started as manufacturing, but we anticipate that it will grow. It will be adding other companies that, you know, I think we started with 5, didn't we, Steve? And, you know, we anticipate that that will grow, those numbers will grow. And once you do that, it also cements the community. But one of the things that I found very interesting about it is people who are from other companies, company X, Y, Z, and they all get together in a room and they begin to share about their problems, about what's wrong here, what's wrong there. And so it's really kind of a networking thing, and it allows people to realize, well, the grass isn't really greener on the other side. They still have the same problems we do.
And you are not alone. You are not alone.
So that's kind of a side benefit, I think, when you put several companies together and they send their employees, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing, and we'll leave it on that note. We've been talking with Manon Pardue and Steve Thurmond, both representing the Simpson County Training Consortium and the Franklin-Simpson Chamber of Commerce. We've been talking about preparedness and preparing for jobs, but now we want to talk about, are you prepared in the event of a disaster? We're going to find out when Kentucky Outlook continues. Stay with us. Kentucky Outlook continues, and don't forget about visiting us on our webpage at wkyupbs.org or Facebook and Twitter, of course. You know, in the first half of this show, we were talking about preparedness economically, but there's a lot of talk about cyber attacks being the real threat. What would happen if the grid went down? What would happen if there's a tornado, an earthquake? You know, we do live on the New Madrid Fault. So would you be prepared in the event of an emergency? We're going to talk about that as we welcome to the program Jennifer Capps, who's the Executive Director of the American Red Cross Southcentral Kentucky chapter. Jennifer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
How do we define a disaster? Does it have to get to a certain level before it's declared a disaster? How's that work?
Well, it depends on what situation you're in and if it's your own disaster. Oftentimes we see on television tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding, and those types of things. But we also help with single-family fires. So if your home, you lose your home in a fire, that's your own personal disaster, and we help with those every day. So it just kind of depends on what has displaced you from your home and what type of emergency that actually is.
So the American Red Cross, you know, has a beautiful legacy, a beautiful history, but people may not know what exactly they will do in these disasters. So what are your limitations, or what are your, what can you go forward with?
We want families and individuals to prepare. We want you to be prepared for the first 72 hours of a disaster. It's oftentimes, if it's a large impact, if it's a tornado, and you think about the devastation even in Oklahoma, how long does it take emergency crews and responders to get to you? How are those lines of communications kind of brought to a halt, and how are you going to be able to communicate with loved ones? So we want to make sure that you're able to take care of you and your family for 72 hours with food, water, emergency supplies, first aid kits, and the Red Cross is going to be there. But it's going to take us time to activate to get there, and it's going to take responders a time to get to you if you're affected. So, when we're looking at pan flu, we're looking at a 2-week window of we want you to have the supplies that you need. So it just kind of varies, but we want you to think about that ahead of time in case you are trapped in your home or you have to evacuate and leave, what that looks like.
Well, speaking about what that looks like, think about this. As you're hearing Jennifer talk, I'm wondering, do you have a disaster preparedness kit? Because I think a lot of people hear these things, they watch, Hurricane Katrina, the disaster, the devastation, Sandy a year ago, and think that happens in other places. It won't happen here. But we do live on the New Madrid fault line, not to scare, but we are earthquake prone in these parts. And so those kinds of things could easily happen just like that.
Right. We had an exercise last week on earthquake and what that would look like here in Southcentral Kentucky. The western part of the state is going to be much more devastated, but they're going to evacuate here. If we have the magnitude that could possibly devastate us here, we would be without water, we'd be without electricity, and then we would also be a staging area for the response going on in the western part of the state. So you still need to think about that whole infrastructure and rebuilding and what that's going to look like, and you need to be able to take care of your family, and then we would also have others coming into the community that have been evacuated.
Well, that's something I hadn't thought about. Now, you were gracious enough previously to get together for us a disaster preparedness kit, and so we're gonna show you some video of what you should have in your disaster preparedness kit. And when you see it, you're probably going to go, oh, yeah. But there were a couple things in there you fooled me, I wouldn't have thought of. And so let's take a look at that video, and then when we come back, we'll dice it apart. Take a look.
You have a 3-day supply of food and water in your disaster kit. We recommend a gallon of water per person per day so that you can stay hydrated. You can also use the water to brush your teeth. We also want to look at easy snacks, high protein. We've got Venus sausage with a pop top. Make sure that you've got that pop top in your disaster kit. We also want to take into account any infants in the home, any elderly in the home. If should they get sick or something during the disaster, or maybe they're on a special diet already, but they can eat baby food. And then we also want to keep our pets in mind. You want to make sure that they have a 3-day supply of food and water as well, because it could be several days before someone can get to you. You just want to make sure that your family is prepared, and we do recommend that 72 hours. The next thing that we recommend for your disaster kit, obviously for your home, is a weather radio, so that you're notified when severe weather is happening. Emergency management can also come in over a weather radio and notify you of any shelter locations in the area. There are all kinds of radios. You may have something already at your home that actually may have a siren, a light, a cell phone charger. The one that I have at home personally is a hand crank, so you don't have to worry about batteries, which is a nice feature. You can also get on your cell phone the tornado apps that we talked about. You can get first aid apps and whistles. If there's a disaster and there's a tornado and they're doing search and rescue, and that if we were in rubble or people were searching and we were just exhausted and out of energy, that you can blow that whistle. So that's very important to have in your kit. We also recommend that you have a first aid kit and first aid items in your disaster kit. We want to make sure that if there's severe weather and for some reason someone in your family is injured, that you know what to do. And again, you can download the first aid kit or the first aid app to your cell phone. A 3-day supply of medications. This would be prescription and over the counter. We want to make sure that your medical needs are met, but then also pain relievers for adults and also for children. Just some basic toilet paper, diapers, and wipes. Wipes can be used for a number of things, so don't just think about those in terms of infants. Another thing that we recommend for your disaster kit is flashlights, and then you want to make sure that you have extra batteries. One flashlight in the kit is going to be plenty, but you're a family of 4, you might want to think about having a flashlight for everyone. There's headlamps that you can get that are going to let you be able to work while you have your flashlight. We also recommend that you have blankets in your emergency kit. You can just do blankets that you have around your house, but we also have emergency blankets. These are Mylar. It traps in your body heat, so this is good, especially if you're in extreme heat or cold. Just something else to think about for your kit. Want to make sure that you have the items that you need in the event that there is a disaster and someone is hurt or sick.
And just like that, it's magic. She's here in the studio too. Thank you, Jennifer, for doing that pre-produced piece for us. But there you see, that's what you should have in your disaster preparedness kit. Now, what you asked me, what was it that surprised you? Well, the whistles, for starters. What a great idea if indeed you were trapped underground and you needed to alert emergency personnel that you were there. A whistle would be an excellent idea because chances are you're going to be exhausted. You've been through a trauma, you've been through dramatic, so good idea. And then these little blankets.
Yes.
These little, I've never seen these.
They're Mylar blankets. It's basically what your helium balloons are made out of.
Okay.
But it will hold in heat or hold in the cool depending on your circumstances. And it's just something that you can have in the kit, have one for everybody in the family. You just never know what kind of situation you're going to find yourself in, and that is a very small, packed away.
Doesn't take up a lot of room.
Right.
And then the water situation. Reiterate for our audience how much water you need per person per day, and for how many days should you plan?
1 gallon of water per person per day.
Okay.
And we want you to have at least a 3-day supply. I'll give you the perfect example. The ice storm hit. I had a 6-week-old baby at home. We were in a very fortunate situation that we did not lose power, but I did not at that time have an adequate supply of water should I needed to make bottles with formula and that sort of thing. So it just kind of brought to home, what would we have done had we been trapped and not had the water for the formula.
And then the flashlights. Now, you mentioned having 1 flashlight per person in your household, which is a really good idea. Certainly have 1, but if everybody could have their own, that would be a great idea.
Absolutely, and this one's battery operated, but there's also some that you can shake that aren't, you don't have to worry about batteries. There are lots of neat things that you can purchase out there when you kind of think ahead. Even on the weather radio, this one here has an emergency light and a siren. So that light would just generate more light for you as you're, pulling through the rubble, looking to see, maybe your child's injured and you need that light to kind of address that situation and take care of them. So,
well, and this one's really cool, this radio, because you can hand crank it, because you're not always going to have batteries, or the batteries could run out, but this goes hand cranked, and it also has an adapter for a cell phone, you said?
yes, you can get an adapter for your cell phone, so you can charge your cell phone with it. It's got the light, the siren, you can listen to local radio, local television, and then also the weather radio alerts that you're getting. And a great thing about that, we often hear the warnings and that sort of thing take cover, but emergency management can actually come in on the other side of that and let you know where shelters are, what precautions you might need to take after an emergency, so that you're getting that information. So this is a life-saving device.
It really is. And apps. As it stands, American Red Cross now has available mobile apps that you might want to get for your phone, which would be a great idea.
And they are all free, which is wonderful. We have a tornado app, so you can actually download the tornado app, and if you're traveling, a lot of times you would get messages on your phone from local agencies that would say there's a tornado warning in Warren County. Well, if you're in Florida on vacation, that does you no good. I mean, you might be concerned about family members, but this tornado app actually travels with you. So based on your GPS location, it's going to notify you of severe weather where you are. And often when we travel, we don't know what counties we're in. We don't know kind of like where we are on that radar on the map. So that's going to actually notify you and give you that warning, which is great. There's also the disaster kit information is on there on how to build a disaster kit. You can take quizzes, and it'll show you the paths of the tornadoes over the last 63 years in this area. So you can kind of see, based on where you are on a daily basis, what that looks like.
Now, we're not trying to be alarmist in any way, shape, or form. We're trying to be prepared. So the biggest question that I have is, where do you put the disaster preparedness kit? What's the most logical place to keep it, and in what should you keep it? What's the best way to do that?
Mine is in a duffel bag. The one we have at the office is in duffel bags and buckets. So it's kind of just depending on what you would need. if you needed to shelter in place or if you needed to evacuate. So you want to be able to carry it out of your home if you needed to evacuate because of a chemical
some
spill.
big huge
right.
box that you can't
Yeah,
carry
something you
somewhere.
can manage by yourself, and it may
Okay.
be in 2 or 3 different things. You might have go bags for your kids. Mine is in the coat closet, but the coat closet is very close to where we would go if there was severe weather issued, where we would take it into the closet underneath the stairs. My boys know that if there's an alert, that's where we're going. We're going to grab everything and go in that central
gather there.
location. But you want it to be accessible, and you want that emergency space where you're going to go during a tornado warning to be cleaned out. You don't want to have to clean that out when the warning
it's
happens,
happening.
right? So make sure that that is accessible and just take it where you are, or you can keep it there. If your basement is your best place, just have your bag there in your basement.
And we also talked about, I'd heard that keep it in your car, but you said why not have a second kit
Absolutely.
in your car?
Severe weather. We've probably all know people that have spent the night out in a snowstorm somewhere on the side of the road. Just having an extra kit in your car, especially as we're preparing for winter, is a great idea. Food and water as well. We see so many of these survivor shows on TV, but you have to have the supplies with you so that you're not caught off guard and have substantial supplies.
Good advice. We're just about out of time. If you want to find out more about those apps or anything about the disaster preparedness kit, where would you send us?
You can go to redcross.org for all types of disaster information, even specific for the different types of disaster. And then in your mobile app store, just type in American Red Cross. They'll all pop up for free. There are a number of first aid apps that can help you through emergency situations, so great resources.
Great resources, and now you have no excuse not to have a disaster preparedness kit in your home. Thank you, really good information. We've been talking with Jennifer Capps, who is the Executive Director of American Red Cross, the South Central Kentucky chapter. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. Until next time, I'm Barbara Deeb. We're glad you joined us.